Let's bring in State Representative Cam Buckner. There's been so much conversation about what is going to happen to the Bears. Will they stay in Chicago? Will they be in Arlington Heights? And it seemed like for a moment, everyone was kind of coalescing around, okay, it looks like this move is actually going to happen. Until yesterday, he threw a wrench into things down in Springfield and introduced some legislation that could stall or hinder the team's efforts. So Representative Cam Buckner, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You know, you play ball. Soldier Field is in your district, so you are the person to talk to on this. Tell me about this legislation, why you introduced it, and how you came to create it.
Yeah, the piece of legislation that was introduced yesterday is the STARS Act, the Stadium Transparency and Responsible Spending Act. And what it is really is a effort for the state of Illinois to start having some very streamlined and predictable conversations and processes when it comes to stadium financing. We know for far too long in this state and really across this country, billionaire team owners have asked the people to foot the bill for their $1 billion playpens, which are these stadiums. And to your point, as someone who was an athlete, as someone who has worked in professional sports, I've actually built stadiums in my career before the legislature. I understand how this space works, but given all that's going on in this state and around the world, we can't be writing blank checks to teams without having some semblance of accountability in those processes.
Did your phone ring with someone from the Bears immediately after you introduced this legislation?
Of course, I've been in constant contact with the organization. I've been very critical of them publicly and privately, and I will continue to until they do what I call show their work and show why what they're asking makes sense. I've had conversations today in person with members of the Bears front office who were here in Springfield. To me, this can't be just about them now. We see, once again, these $1 billion entities continuing to go to the people, asking the people to either pay their bill or to erase their debt. And then 2025, when we look at the type of money that we need for transit and education and public safety, I don't know why we're still talking about stadium financing as if it's even a possibility without guardrails. So all of this bill does, as far as I'm concerned, it says show your work. It says be transparent. And if a stadium deal is going to happen, it needs to happen with two things: sunlight and scrutiny.
And when you say be transparent, let's go back to this 2003 Soldier Field renovation, because a lot of people really didn't realize they're still paying on that.
That is correct, right? And so I often think about this when the Bears did the last renovation on Soldier Field, when the city did the last renovation on Soldier Field in 2002. I was a high school junior who was working a weekend job as an usher at Soldier Field during Bears games. I watched the wrecking ball come in after that game against the Philadelphia Eagles in 2002 and start the renovation process. Here we are 20 plus years later. I'm no longer a high school student. I happen to be in this role now, and we still owe $532 million on that. Who owes that? The people of Chicago, not the Bears, not the folks who use that space, but those of us who pay taxes in the city. And so if we're going to try to move forward and we want to be the example to other states and cities on how to deal with these stadium financing conversations, it has to start with us being honest, and we have to show the people what they're getting for it.
Yeah. Do you see, though, their argument in terms of needing a new facility? I mean, if you visit other stadiums, and I know you do, if you visit other stadiums and you come back to Soldier Field, do you see their argument in this?
I absolutely do. I understand the economics of it. As I said, as a person who worked in sports front offices in my past, I get it. And I don't think that they're wrong to try to have a conversation about creating a new atmosphere for themselves. What I do think they're wrong is asking you and me and my constituents to pay for it. I think there has to be a better way to do this. Once again, this team in particular is worth nearly $10 billion. I'll say that one more time. That's billion with a B, $10 billion. And I think it's short-sighted, myopic to come to the people and say, we want to build a new stadium because we want a better fan experience, and then ask the people to pay for it. And then, by the way, most of the folks who are footing the bill with their taxes will never be able to afford to even buy a ticket to walk into their stadium. And that's the truth today, right? And so I just think it's time for us to shift the paradigm and change the way we operate in this space.
Now, it did seem like they were getting more help, or it maybe made more financial sense to them to go to Arlington Heights.
So I think as they run their numbers, they've said that Arlington Heights makes more sense for them. And once again, what I've said is that if they land there, if that's what they're going to do, I would want them to continue to play their home games in the city of Chicago. I think one of the great things about Chicago sports is that all of our teams play their home games within the city confines. I think that's a huge deal that they can't boast that in New York or LA or Dallas. And so I want us to keep that going. But if that is not a possibility, given whatever the financial realities are, and they have to leave, I would just say that they need to find a way to pay for it themselves. Once again, this can't come back to the doorsteps of the people. And so the response here has been lukewarm to some of the things that they've asked for. I think it appears that they have been getting further in the conversation than they really have, because they've presumed that they were going to get what they want, like the good old days. These are not the good old days. We're putting the people of Illinois first, and we're going to have that conversation with them in public and private, however they want to have it, because the truth of the matter is that we can't just write a blank check and turn our back.
Okay, so let's say if you're not writing a blank check, and obviously I'm not asking you to give away everything, but where do you see a happy medium being?
I think it's the Bears' obligation to start negotiating on what they're willing to to pull forward, to bring forward. But I think we should back up and start from the beginning. In order to have that conversation, we have to have a full and clear picture of what the real economic benefit and impact is, right? The Bears have put out a study that they claim is independent, but when you pay for something yourself, it's hard to call it independent. There's another study that came out from the village of Arlington Heights that was actually also paid for by the Bears. And so what this bill that I've put forth asks for is for a true independent analysis about what the stresses are, what the obligations are. Will this be net gain or a net loss for Arlington Heights and for the people of Illinois and the people of Cook County? We need the numbers and the data in order to make a real decision on how to move forward. And that's what this bill puts into motion.
Mm-hmm. So thus far, before they talked about moving to Arlington Heights, was there ever a plan that they put forward that you saw some daylight in?
It's hard to tell, because when I talk about being transparent and honest, the Bears have flip-flopped. As you remember, they initially said that they were not going to leave Chicago. Then they said they were going to go to Arlington Heights no matter what. Then they came back and did a big press conference last April in Chicago saying that Chicago was their home forever. Then they switched again and said they were moving to Arlington Heights. And so it's hard to keep up with their plans. I've had whiplash trying to figure out which plan is the real plan. And so once again, I hope what they can do as a team is press reset, talk about what they've done wrong, have a conversation about the way forward, and do it once again in public, do it on the record so that the people can hear it and that we can make the best decision for the state and for the city and for the county.
One thing that I think and many people have said, and now it's possibly coming true, it's a little easier to get behind a team that's winning. So at least these last 3 games, people have been in a very happy place. And just talk outside of this stadium proposal, your thoughts on the season thus far.
Yeah, it's been an interesting season so far. I like the way they've been able to turn around and pivot. There's been some very frustrating moments for those of us who root for them on Sundays. Some of the games, like the one on Monday, they should have had put away a long time ago. But they, kept us entertained, and they found a way to win at the end. But listen, Chicago's better when the Bears are winning. I think the region is better when the Bears are winning. I'm happier. Everybody in my household is happier when the Bears are winning. And so hopefully they continue to do the right things on the field, and hopefully that transfers into wins off the field that start with accountability and transparency and find a way to tell the people what they really want and how it would benefit them.
Yeah, and where do you see them going this season? How many wins? What do you feel like the projection of the season is now for you?
Well, it's a long season. So far they've been able to dust the cobwebs off after the first couple of games. It's hard to predict, but if I were to make a prediction right now on the spot, I could see the Bears walking away this year with between 6 and 8 wins, depending on how the injury report looks deep into the season.
Okay. What happens next with your conversations now that you've presented this bill? What happens? You know, there was this belief going into the veto session that we had kind of put to bed the conversation on the Bear Stadium for a while, and now we're right back in the thick of it. So what happens now that you've introduced this? Where does it go from here?
Yeah, that belief that things were over and pretty much a fait accompli were really pushed by the team. If you talk to legislators, if you talk to the governor, if you talk to the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate, none of us felt comfortable giving the Bears a tax break while there are people around Illinois who need a tax break, while there are families who are having a hard time making ends meet. Um, to the Bears, this is the most important thing on their docket. But for those of us in Springfield who are tasked with legislating for the entire state, we're worried about ICE and the National Guard. We're worried about the federal shutdown and what it means for state resources. We're worried about education and the environment and the energy and the fact that people both downstate and in Chicago have soaring energy bills right now. Those are the things that are important to us. Those are the priorities for us in this veto session. And so I never thought that their issue was a priority. But what needs to happen next, as far as I'm concerned, is that they need to once again push the reset button, come to Springfield, have a conversation. I've asked particularly for George McCaskey and the Bears ownership to find their way to the state capitol to have a conversation. Just about a year and a half ago, when the White Sox began these talks about a new stadium, Jerry Reinsdorf came down and had real conversations with leaders and with rank and file members. And I think that if Jerry Reinsdorf can find the state capitol on his GPS, hopefully the folks at Hollis Hall can as well.
Okay, all right, yeah. And for people who don't understand the process of legislation in the state, where does yours go from here?
So now it will be assigned to a committee. We may get a subject matter hearing in the next couple of days here, but after it leaves the Rules Committee, goes to committee, we'll have at some point a committee hearing and a committee vote on it. It has to happen that way before you go to the floor and have a full vote. Then the same process starts over in the Senate before it can make the governor's desk. So there's a process here, and I'm willing to slow down that process if there are, once again, more robust and honest conversations about what the people get out of these conversations and what the people get out of this proposed deal.
Something tells me someone's firing up their GPS right now. Representative Cam Buckner, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thanks for having me.